We are Rogue Media Sports.
Have you ever brought your magic to Walt Disney World like, hey, we came to play? Did you tip your tiara to a Creole princess or get goofy officially? Step up like a boss and save the day? Or see what life's like under the tree of life? Did you? If you could. Would you? When we come through, it's true magic. 'Cause we came to play. Bring the magic at Walt Disney World Resort.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries, plus napkins, plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.
Well, it is the Doomsday podcast. We're gathered in Oxnard, California for Cowboys Training Camp.
We get extra Marriott points if we use this as our recording studio.
We should. We certainly should. And I may film your room right now. It's a beautiful studio that we're in. You've just blown I was going to try to paint a picture of us out at Cowboys Camp. No, we're just about 10 miles away from where we've been attending all these practices. And you heard Ed Werder's voice already. And Ed and I have some interviews to share with you. And you've been asking, when's the Doomsday podcast going to roll out? Well, here it is. And if you hear some like waves crashing in the background, we have the window open here at our palatial studios.
Let us know, because we're about a mile from the beach. And we'd be in grave jeopardy if you could hear waves crashing into the building at this point. Yeah. I think you might hear some cars in the parking lot.
It's a gorgeous view. This almost, to me, looks like Dodger Stadium a little bit, if you just kind of squint. But that is a beautiful view out there, and you can almost see the water from where we are. Ed,
it's a partial ocean
view. It's very partial.
I have to tell you, I've laid out some nice snacks and drinks for us, a little fierce grape Gatorade that we're sharing here with some ice in the glasses, and I went down to get the ice from the ice machine. And a gentleman was walking the other direction, clearly coming from the gym, and he recognized me and introduced himself to me, and I shook his hand. And as I went around the corner, he was telling me how much he enjoyed my TV work over the years. And then he said, "Oh, one more thing," and I stepped back to let him say what it was he wanted to say. And he says, "I love your podcast." I told him we would be doing one from my room in a short space of time, so it's possible he'll knock on the door.
Did you give him the room number? I swear, I hope he doesn't know exactly where we are right now. Ed has requested, we're on separate sides of the building. He was a little nervous at one point. I mentioned, Ed, should we stay together? And that didn't go very far, so that didn't happen. Ed, it is good to be with you. We've had some interesting conversations already. We've heard from Mike McCarthy. I actually visited with Jerry a little bit today, and there's some exciting stuff. You've had some really interesting interviews that we might reference at some point. But I would say, Ed, the biggest news, we thought the Zach Martin holdout would probably be the biggest news to kind of start camp. And we'll deal with that in a second. But Trayvon Diggs signs a long-term extension.
5 years, $97 million. One of the top 5 salaries for a corner in football.
Yeah, and we knew they would start signing some different players, but it's a big number. I think $42.3 million of that is guaranteed. But I think it's a sign, Ed. In 2024, that's the first time they'll be eligible to perhaps do an extension with Micah Parsons.
After this season, correct.
Yes. But Diggs, he's a key part. He's put up huge numbers. And, I think that was and again, it's always a little awkward when you got one guy who's a Hall of Famer holding out and you sign another guy to a huge contract. again, these are separate issues. And I also noticed, by the way, on Zach, that some of the linemen said today, I think it was Tyron Smith, said they had gotten something basically like, set the tone.
I'll be there soon.
I'll be there soon, which we knew he was going to have a hard time with this holdout. He wants to be here, and he'll be here. But first of all, let's just talk about the Trayvon Diggs deal a little bit. I wouldn't call it team friendly, but it's not bad. For once the Cowboys didn't want to set the market on running back. Well, they did with Zeke.
Because he held out.
They didn't want to set the market with quarterback. Well, they kind of did with Dak Prescott, although quarterback by the day with the Burrows impending deal, the San Diego Herbert's deal, that's changing by the day. But
Lamar Jackson signed in the offseason.
To me, it seemed pretty reasonable. I mean, I know
Jerry liked the Aaron Rodgers $35 million give back, and I think he's going to approach Dak about that concept. Mm-hmm. Maybe on the weekend.
Dak, in one of these years, can you take $1 million? Would that be cool? Or take the veterans minimum for 1 year? Yeah, very interesting. You're right, Aaron Rodgers. I by the way, I came close today, but I was kind of pushing my luck with McCarthy. I sort of want to ask McCarthy what he thinks of Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform. And I just didn't know. You never know. You found a prickly McCarthy today a little bit with one of your questions.
My question was an obvious one. It was a topic of conversation, really has been since day one of the offseason, and that is McCarthy in year 4 finally taking over as the play caller, finally having enough leverage after losing consecutive seasons, 12-win seasons to the 49ers in the playoffs and not scoring points like they did in the regular season. He finally had enough leverage on Jerry to get the job he's always coveted. He's always wanted to be the play caller. He talked about when he was in Green Bay for 13 years, he allowed one assistant coach to call the plays part of 1 year. He took it back and vowed he'd never do it again. Then he comes to Dallas, and for 3 years he's not calling the plays because he inherits Kellen Moore, Jerry Jones's whiz kid. And he did a fantastic job based on all the rankings. They scored 30 points a game. They were one of the highest scoring teams in football. Only the Chiefs have won more games. But when they lost to the 49ers in the way they did, and Jerry had bigger expectations, and understandably so, McCarthy finally had the leverage to say, I need to be calling the plays. This is what I bring to the organization in addition to the program I've already established. And I always thought, quite honestly, if you're going to hire Mike McCarthy, that's where his value really lies, is in being a play caller. And I think that if it doesn't work between him and Dak, and you have to decide eventually that one or both of them haven't met your expectations, you need to move on, then I think you want to have said, I gave them both their best chance. And so I understand why Jerry went this direction, although when I asked Jerry at the opening press conference out here to get into his thought process on why now is the right time, he started his answer by saying, well, you're making some presumptions there, as if I was presuming incorrectly that he wasn't involved in making this decision. The guy who's always telling us how all the big final decisions are made by the owner and general manager, which is Jerry, is all of a sudden saying, well, wait a minute, you're presuming that I had anything to do with this. and then he finally did say, I think in the time that Mike's been here and the evolution of the offense, and it has evolved, he said, it's more about what Mike can do, not about what Kellen can't do. And so I think that's interesting. And I was watching today at practice, and Mike said he is barely involved with the defense in terms of meeting or on the field. I mean, it's all to Dan Quinn, and justifiably so. I think it can feel like Dan Quinn can handle things on his side of the ball. And Fossil can probably handle most things on special teams by himself. And so, Mike is spending all his time with the offense and with a lot of time with the quarterbacks. I mean, he was coaching Will Greer point by point today with his release, with his footwork, the whole thing. So Mike's spending all of his time on that side of the ball, and Dak seems in. And I mean, he and Kellen had a great relationship. This is his first year in the Cowboys camp without Kellen Moore and without Ezekiel Elliott. That was a fallout from losing in the second round to the 49ers and not getting to the championship game again. And I know Dak misses those two guys, but he's a professional, And he seems now to have moved on and is now embracing this opportunity that he has with Mike and the time that they spend together preparing.
Yeah, and, on the Jerry front, we always, this was an interesting opening news conference, by the way. This is our first chance to talk. I was celebrating my daughter's 16th birthday, and then I flew in the next morning for the first practice. And Jerry did not even give a opening statement. No one did. He said,
Thank God.
He said, hey, I got questions? Although you never know where he might go on that opening statement. But it was a relatively short, by previous standards, Cowboys State of the Union address. But Jerry did get around to saying, I think we're a contender. He mentioned, about the top spot. I thought one of the funniest moments was probably his funniest moment, or my favorite moment, was him talking about the nuance of
The dorm room?
Yeah, and coming to
Which they
pulling
stay in a
into
hotel,
camp.
not a dorm room. Anyway.
Yeah, but he was comparing it, I think, to like a college dorm room that he had, and then he jokes that, but I slip out the back door to the Biltmore.
If there was a Biltmore in this town, we would not be sitting in the Marriott right now.
I've got no
Well,
problem.
one of us wouldn't be sitting at the Marriott right now. I can't speak for you.
I got no problem with this
But
Marriott.
the other great moment for Jerry, and he has obviously toned down the Super Bowl rhetoric. I mean, it used to be Super Bowl or bust with him at the start of every camp. Mm-hmm. And it drove the 90s players who were actually capable of living up to it, it drove them insane because it created an expectation that if they didn't win the Super Bowl, then they failed. But he hasn't put that on this team and hasn't done so recently, although he did say, when you look around at who we've had who's not here, and when you realize where you are with Tyron Smith in his career, and you realize where you are with Dak Prescott in his career, and Dak turns 30 on Saturday. This is his age 30 season. And no Cowboys quarterback has won his first Super Bowl after turning 30. Troy Aikman won his first at 26, and Roger Staubach won his first at 29. And so Jerry said, and so considering all of those things, now is the time. Like right now is the time. And I think they've reacted in that way by going out and trading for Brandon Cooks, veteran wide receiver who's played in the Super Bowl, who's had 1,000-yard receiving seasons. It was an acknowledgement that they made a bad decision. If they won't admit on trading Amari Cooper, at least on not adequately replacing Amari Cooper last year. And Stephon Gilmore. They've got 3 really good corners now. And so I think Jerry's kind of put his money where his mouth is in that regard. And then the bolder commentary came from Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy's the one who said he's not shying away from, winning a Super Bowl being the expectation. He said, coming off 12-win seasons, you have to be in it consistently to have your chance. He says, if you're going to knock down the door, you got to be on the front porch. And so he said he thinks this is going to be their breakthrough season. I mean, it all depends on injuries and stuff. But when you look around, when you see how good this team is, and really how good it's been, you don't win 12 games 2 years in a row if you're not a good team, if you don't have good talent. You could argue that they've blown 2 opportunities here because of the talent they had, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, the defense has led the NFL in takeaways 2 years in a row. The Cowboys have scored more points off turnovers than any team in football the last 2 years. That's probably part of the reason they average 30 points a game. But they haven't gotten that done in the playoffs, and they haven't scored in the playoffs against a great defense the 49ers have. And so... but if you look around the NFC, I mean, all the quarterbacks are in the AFC. Aaron Rodgers isn't in Green Bay anymore. You don't have to beat Aaron Rodgers, until February. I mean, you'd like to beat him week 2, I imagine, when he comes to Cowboys Stadium with the Jets. But I mean, who? Well, Tom Brady retired. He's not. You don't have to go through Tom Brady, although they beat Tom Brady last year in the playoffs.
Well, while we both have a great appreciation for Dak Prescott and some of the things he's accomplished, given where he came into the league, based on kind of what you were just talking about, part of that matchup they had was they should have had a huge upper hand, you would think, at the quarterback position in that game against San Francisco, And San Francisco came in with Brock Purdy, a rookie who was taken in the 7th round.
Last player picked in the entire draft.
Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. And even, sometimes we base everything on what happened in the game. I would say even in the build-up to that game, there was not like a clear, well, the Cowboys have an enormous advantage because of the way Brock Purdy had been playing.
He's 6-0 going into the game.
So you're one guy's making $40 million a year, or whatever it is, and one guy's making, the minimum, or rookie, whatever you make. What is this? 700,000, 600,000? I mean, and they didn't have a clear, and so that again, that ended up being, fair or not, an indictment of Kellen, because it's like when you got a guy under contract, you can't do anything with Dak. In fact, after the season, even though the interceptions were a huge storyline, we quickly moved on to, well, got to get a new deal done with Dak soon, right?
They put themselves in that position by using the franchise tag twice. It's the Kirk Cousins situation all over again. He owns the team. Every year or two, he gets taken back to the top of the market. You're never going to get a break on Dak Prescott's salary. And I thought it was interesting. We talked a little bit about Zach Martin and his holdout. And the last time they had a holdout, it was Ezekiel Elliott, and he won decisively. One of the worst contracts Cowboys have ever paid out.
Yeah.
That's why Zeke's not here right now. But now the Cowboys have a leverage that they didn't have before, which is the $50,000 a day mandatory fine that can't be rescinded. They didn't have that available to them when Elliott was holding out. They have it now to use against Zach Martin, and they are using it on a daily basis. But when Dak was asked off the podium after his press conference today how he feels about Zach Martin's holdout, he said, "Pay the man." Like he was not. He was unequivocal. If you think he's a house guy and he's going to equivoque, he's going to create any kind of easiness for Jerry Jones in this. He didn't. He didn't because he needs his offensive linemen first of all, and he wants to be loyal to them for what they do for him. But at the same time, he's been in it with Jerry. He's been at odds with Jerry and had Jerry use a franchise tag on him in a way that most players think is unfair.
I thought that was interesting, too. And, in fact, the Dak, him saying pay the man showed a couple of things. You're right. It showed that he's not just going to toe the company line. And, quite honestly, when Tony had a chance to stick up for DeMarco Murray, who had put up huge numbers and helped the Cowboys in a dramatic way, and he loved DeMarco Murray, but it was kind of like, hey, I don't really participate in that part of the team. Pay the man is kind of like, hey, I'm in charge, I'm the quarterback, and this guy's huge for me. Get this thing done. And I tweeted something about the fact that I've thought of Dak as, I don't mean this as a criticism, I just think he's very diplomatic, like one of the more diplomatic guys around. I mean, he's not going to get too far off the path. For him to say that, I think means a lot. And I think his teammates will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Here's my quarterback. Whoever's on the team is going to go out here and lobby for a teammate. That
Because they all feel like he'd do it for them.
Correct.
Yeah. He did the right thing. Jerry probably won't like it. It puts a lot of pressure on Jerry to do something he's got to do. I mean, he's modified contracts in this circumstance before, despite him standing up there and talking about the importance of the integrity of a contract and honoring it, because we're supposed to get some benefit when we sign a 6-year deal, and the first year the guy's the highest paid player at his position like Zach Martin was, then, at the end of it, we're supposed to be in a more advantageous position. That's why we do 6 years. They do 6 years so that they can amortize the signing bonus and lessen the effect on the salary cap, which you want your owner to do because it makes your team more competitive. But in a situation like this, they're going to have to accommodate Zach Martin, I believe. I don't think he'll just come in. I think they're going to have to modify his contract. And, if anybody in the league deserves to be paid at the top of his position group, I think Zach Martin can make a pretty solid case. And right now, he's $7 million a year less than some other interior offensive linemen are making. $7
million, yeah. I mean, I think modifications can be different at different positions, and the modification made for Saquon Barkley did not blow anybody away. I mean, if you want to look at the running back position and what it's thought of in the league, look at Zeke when he held out just, 4 or 5 years ago?
2019.
Okay. And then look at Saquon, who was very upset, said some pretty aggressive things. And what is his modification? It's like, oh, here's some incentives. We can get you from 9 to 10 or something like that.
See, but his problem was the quarterback didn't take the franchise tag hit like Dak did here. Dak took the franchise tag hit, and that allowed guys like Amari Cooper, who was going out of contract, to become a free agent and get top-of-the-market value because Washington offered him a similar deal. And it allowed Zeke then to hold out and Jerry to panic and do what he said he wouldn't do, which was make him the highest-paid player at his position at running back. And I think a big part of that was because the head coach at the time, Jason Garrett, knew his fate was going to be determined by how he won that year, and he made the point to Jerry that that was an unfair position to put the head coach in when you're denying him his best player from the start of the season. And so Jerry made sure he got the deal done before Jason Garrett had to play even one game without Ezekiel Elliott. Jimmy Johnson had to play 2 games without Emmitt Smith.
Yeah. And, of course, that was on his mind. All right, speaking of running backs.
What a great segue.
Yeah.
Boy,
Ed,
I took this conversation to just the right place. Go ahead.
I thought I created the segue, but okay. We had a chance today after practice, and this young man has become a fan favorite already. We watched him signing autographs on one side of the field and another side of the field, and then he came over, and he's just a delightful guy to visit with. And I'm talking about Cowboys rookie running back Deuce Vaughn. And I would have to say, obviously your first-round pick's always going to get the most attention. But after the first-round pick, I would say Deuce is become already kind of one of the more beloved members of that class. And there's a lot of fun things about him. But and let's react to this, Ed. But let's go ahead and take the opportunity. Here was our visit on the Doomsday podcast with Cowboys rookie running back Deuce Vaughn.
What kind of impression has this first few days of camp made on you in terms of the opportunity you're getting?
Just one of those opportunities that you want to just grab by the horns and just take every single opportunity that you can get. Anytime that I'm on the field with any one of these guys, just in a room with Tony Pollard, in a room with these guys that have been with the Cowboys for quite some time, just learning everything that I can to become a vet, become a pro while I'm a rookie, just learning exactly how to move, exactly how to go about your business when you go into football, how you practice, because this is not college anymore, this is pro football, and I'm just trying to get my feet up under me and learning from every single person that's inside this building.
Are they holding back as far as like trying to ease you into, but I think there's a lot of different ways they could use you. Have you already, even in some of these practices, seems like you're in some different spots? Are you kind of showing them, how multiple you can be?
Yeah, whatever they throw at me, I'm 100% willing to do. However long or however fast they want to put me in and do different things, I'm going to take everything that I can and I'm going to show them what I can do. That's probably the biggest thing for myself, especially with only being day 2, is as much as they put on my plate, I'm going to take every single crumb.
It seems like maybe you have an advantage in terms of getting more opportunities than you ordinarily might have because they released Ezekiel Elliott in the offseason and Tony Pollard's coming back from this injury and they're slowly ramping him up. Does that create more reps for you?
Of course. That's the biggest thing is myself, Ronald Jones, Malik Davis, and Rico Dowdle, and even Hunter Lepke, who's playing like the fullback, running back kind of hybrid. We're all getting those touches, and we're all having an opportunity to come out here and express our talents and express the way we play football. And it's just taking it day by day for all of us, and then also in the film room whenever we're in the meeting room, is helping each other out, being there for each other, because we understand that even though we're competing, we're teammates, and we want to come out here and put the best foot forward for these coaches. Mike
McCarthy in his press conference today was talking about, he mentioned you by name, Brandon Cooks by name, as versatile type space players. Given that and the fact he's known to play rookies and give them significant roles, is that encouraging to someone like you?
Absolutely. It gives you the confidence as a rookie to to say, okay, the head coach, the offensive coordinator and staff believes in playing younger guys if they can come out here and show that they're able to play. So it puts a huge vote of confidence in myself and even guys that are on the defense side of the ball and playing different positions to come in here and take every opportunity, like you were talking about earlier, to come out here and put your best foot forward, and understanding that if you come out here and play well, that they're going to be able to put you in and have that confidence in you.
What's the best advice that Tony Pollard has given you up to this point, would you say, in the time you've been around him?
Continue to be yourself. Tony Pollard, he came in as a 4th-round draft pick whenever he came in, and so he's one of those guys that it wasn't given to him. He worked for it, and now that he's the featured back, you get to see exactly what that work over these past years have done for him, as he's an unbelievable football player, mentally, physically, and the way that he runs out here. So it's really, really cool to see him and how he ascended, and he kind of told me and told Hunter Lucky and just everybody to just keep working, keep going at it, the day-to-day grind, and just become better every single day, and everything will fall into place.
It seems people talk more about your lack of size than they do your abundant speed and quickness. What do you think how do you use your size to your advantage?
For myself, especially whenever you're running inside, being able to hide in the trees, in a sense, when you got a guy like Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and Tyler Smith and those guys, and Terrence Steele, and I mean all the entire O-line, being able to use that to my advantage. If you can't see the linebackers, they can't see you. You can kind of feel where they're going. I've kind of been able to use that throughout my time in college, and whenever it's time to pop one, if you're coming from the post as a safety, it's going to be hard to see where I'm coming out of, and then by then I'm up on your toes. And just my versatility as well, whenever it comes to running routes out of the backfield, getting into tight spaces, sitting down in zones, and be able to go deep with my speed, like you said, and just things like that. Just trying to bring my abilities to the table, and whatever the coaching staff is willing to give me, man, I'll take it.
Who are the players of your stature that you've either modeled your game after, or you've watched enough that it convinces you that you can get this opportunity too?
Darren Sproles, of course. Have his number on my phone to this day. Got to meet him my sophomore year at Kansas State, with him just being an alumni. And, man, I talk to him as much as I can. I mean, he was my exact same position coming in whenever he was at San Diego. 5'5", 5'6" guy, 185 pounds, and he did it. Played 15 years in the league and is number 6 all time in all-purpose yards. I mean, that's the blueprint. That's the guy. So if you're going to go and ask any questions to anyone about being successful at this level, at that size, he's 100% go-to. But, of course, watching guys like Wes Welker, watching guys like Barry Sanders back then, it's my favorite player is Barry Sanders. I watched him growing up, but I really got into Wes Welker these past couple of years just because of his path. Whenever he got to the NFL, it was bumpy. He made the team off of the special teams, gets cut, goes to the Dolphins, starts making a name for himself, plays against Patriots. Patriots pick him up, and he's able to rattle off a 13-year career. And just things like that, just in the way that he was 5'8", 5'7", you know, just looking at the blueprints, like I would say, of the guys that have been successful before me.
How excited are you to get to these preseason games?
I'm super excited. It feels like it's been so long since I played football. Played in the Sugar Bowl on New Year's Eve, and, I mean, now football season's back, and I'm super excited to get out there.
What's the newest route you've kind of added to your game that maybe you didn't run at Kansas State?
I'm trying to think. I mean, couple of out routes with return routes and things like that from the slot. Just a couple of things I didn't do at Kansas State. I mean, I ran almost every single route in the tree at Kansas State whenever I got to my junior year, just because, like I said earlier, that confidence with talking to the coaching staff and being able to say, these are things I can do, and just showing them about practices and things like that. But a couple of return routes and things like that, and just trying to take everything that I can get.
Did any of your K-State coaches or teammates reach out to you to kind of tell you good luck or anything before training camp?
Absolutely. Felix Anyudike-Uzama he's my roommate for the past 2.5 years at Kansas State. He just got started with the Chiefs this past week. And, man, we text every single day. Julius Brent started with the Colts this past week as well. A good friend of mine from Kansas State. So we're all on a group thread, and we're kind of giving each other some good luck going into camp, and just telling each other, go and do what you do. We've been able to see each other put in the work at Kansas State for the past 3 years, and now, man, you're living the dream. You're a professional athlete, but the work doesn't stop here.
One of the best ways for a young player to make a team is to contribute on special teams.
Correct.
What are you doing in that regard?
For myself, personal protector on punt. Just finding ways to be able to say that I can be versatile. Talking with Kevontae Turpin, working out with Kevontae Turpin. I mean, unbelievable, explosive kick returner, punt returner, Pro Bowl guy. Why wouldn't you want to talk to him and be an understudy to him, just so that whenever, say, your time does come in a preseason game, to be able to show that you can do that as well is probably the biggest thing for me.
Last question for me anyway. Your dad is obviously a member of the scouting department out here. He recused himself from any evaluations of you as the team made this decision. You've seen the video of how emotional it was when you were chosen and all it meant to him. What's it been like with him out here? Have you been able to engage with him very often?
Yeah, I mean, even just today walking out here, I got to see him as we were both walking onto the field, and it's the first time my dad seen me practice ever. He was a coach throughout my time in high school, and then ended up coming whenever I got to college. Of course, him being 10 hours away, he couldn't come. This is his first time seeing me practice, so it was really, really cool to have him on the sidelines, knowing that I mean, one of your biggest supporters is out there with you. It's really, really cool. This entire journey, it's really, really cool. It's hard to put into words.
All the football players he's seen, that's his life, and he's never seen you until the other day.
Yes, sir. 100%.
Any thoughts on Colorado coming to the Big 12?
Just saw that, and I think that's really, really big for the Big 12. I think that's really, really big for Colorado as well. Man, you see the teams that came in, Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and I mean, that's BYU. I mean, that's just great for the Big 12. I mean, more competition, more games to be played. I'm super excited for Kansas State this year. I think they're gonna have a great season, and to have Colorado coming in 2024 is only gonna help the Big 12.
Deuce, it seems like the PR staff thinks we've taken up just about as much of your time as we're allowed. We're probably gonna be reprimanded severely after this. So thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you the rest of the time.
Shocking that Deuce Vaughn would predict Kansas State to win the conference. Yeah.
Congratulations.
All right, there he was. And Ed, I know you appreciate it when I get involved in some Big 12 talk. You were kind of ready to wrap that up.
I was kind of hoping the Cowboys PR staff would give us the wrap-up sign, maybe a question earlier than they did.
Yeah, but I think, but he kind of jumped on it. He's like, yeah, and I mean, he's going to be fun. I don't think you can understand, how diminutive. You brought up his size and what he's had to overcome, and I thought he had a really interesting answer about that with the offensive line and how he could actually help him. But Ed, until you come out here and see him among this land of giants, you can't really realize how tiny he is.
Like you think that Tony Pollard is a relatively small running back, and Tony Pollard towers over Vaughn. Deuce Vaughn measured 5'5" at the scouting combine. That's the shortest player on record at the combine since 2003. I think the other interesting thing here is that the Cowboys' new offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, was on San Diego's offensive staff when Darren Sproles, a player of similar stature, and you heard Deuce Vaughn say he talks to Darren Sproles, has emulated Darren Sproles, that he played for Schottenheimer. So Schottenheimer goes into this knowing a smaller player like this can succeed. And Stephen Jones was watching him as I was standing there watching Vaughn go through some of the footwork drills and the foot quickness drills, and he said, "Man, our space game. He could really affect our space game." And today, you saw him taking the running backs were lined up out wide, and he was one of them. Tony Pollard was another one of them. Like, I think they see him as a guy like Randall Cobb that McCarthy had in Green Bay can get the ball in the backfield, or he can get it in the passing game, much like Pollard's done. And they don't have a long-term running back solution here right now. I mean, Tony Pollard's playing on the franchise tag this year, so this time next year, Ezekiel Elliott could be gone and Tony Pollard could be gone. So, I think he's a really fascinating guy, and I can't wait to see what he does in these early preseason games.
Yeah, I thought he was very engaging, and I mean, I thought that was interesting when I kind of asked him about the routes. I mean, he was quick to kind of credit. Some guys will say, I've never had this kind of coaching. I've never done this. He was like, I pretty much ran everything on the route tree at Kansas State. He did mention some out routes that he's doing. And, I mean, he's an incredibly gifted player.
He caught 116 passes during his college career. That was the most of any of the running backs in this draft class.
Wow. And he played for a team that won the Big 12 championship. I know what TCU fans, I know what you did. I know you played for a national title, but Kansas State beats TCU in the Big 12 title game. Ed, have I mentioned the Big 12 now has Colorado? You're Buffs. I mean, you didn't go there, but you've covered the team. You're from that area of the world.
I think it's, as we talked about today, and with all due respect to Baylor and Tennessee, and I think it's by far the most beautiful stadium setting in college football, right up against the Flatirons, Rocky Mountains. Just a beautiful place.
Have you climbed?
And Dion's there.
Have you hiked up there in the Flatirons?
I've hiked around the Flatirons.
Okay.
I haven't gone up in the Flatirons, but I worked in Boulder for 5 years as a writer, so I occasionally was the guy that they called in off the Broncos beat to write the hard-hitting column.
I don't doubt that.
Bill McCartney was the head coach, and obviously did a great job there before leaving for Promise Seekers or some other evangelical.
Promise Keepers.
Promise Keepers.
Yeah.
That was close.
You could tell
I
who,
only got one letter
who the
wrong.
Baptist kid is and who maybe didn't go
I
to
was
church.
Catholic. What are you talking about? I was an altar boy.
Bill McCartney's son, Mark McCartney, and I went to Baylor together.
Oh,
and
there you
so
go.
when Bill McCartney had come off his national championship year, you would thought his son would be like, I want to go to Colorado. And the son went to Baylor. Who knows? But to this
They don't
day,
just take just anybody at Colorado.
No.
Or didn't back then.
no. Well, I think they would have taken Bill McCartney's son. I think they would have let him in. But anyway, he's a great guy and continues to be a friend to this day and listens to this podcast. Mark McCartney does, and I think one of the other sons is an agent.
Yeah.
In the NFL. All right, Doomsday podcast.
Mike McCartney, and everybody confuses him on Twitter for Mike McCarthy,
Uh-huh.
and he plays along with that. They're like, "Hey, coach, shouldn't you be, paying attention to getting ready for the playoff game against
Yeah.
the 49ers this week?" And he's like, "Now I'm letting Kellen handle that, or letting Dan Quinn run that game."
That's funny because there's also, if you think about it, Mike McCartney who coached Colorado and used to coach for the Cowboys as well. All right, as we continue to talk, Ed, also, we've been looking at some of the different. One guy that kind of stood out in today's second practice, Jalen Tolbert, is making some contested catches, and he's a little bit of a forgotten name. Last year, they were throwing some.
Last year at this time, they were talking about him being the best receiver on the field.
Yeah, and he didn't.
He wasn't.
He didn't get it done. But he does. Looks like he's taken a step. And I would also. I think people would like your observation of Brandon Cooks so far. In fact, I think you brought up something with Mike McCarthy about Brandon Cooks today. I would just say to the naked eye, the speed is just like it's easy to see. I mean, he's just extremely fast. He's been known as a versatile player. I think it's going to be a really strong addition to the team.
Yeah, I think he's going to change the equation on offense. I think everybody talks about Dak Prescott's interception total last year, which was totally uncharacteristic of him to tie for the NFL lead with 15 interceptions, career high, and have 2 more in the playoff loss to the 49ers. I mean, Dak's always been a guy, even as a rookie, who valued the ball and didn't put it in jeopardy unnecessarily. And last year, I think like a couple of years ago, when they let Des Bryant go, I think they put their quarterback in a bad situation. And they're fortunate that he didn't speak out about it. But Michael Gallup wasn't right coming off his knee surgery. He was never right. He came in later than they thought, and he was never a big factor in anything they did. They didn't replace Amari Cooper. And when they got to the playoff game against the 49ers, they only had 2 weapons. And when Tony Pollard went out, they only had 1. And you just can't win that way in the NFL. So that's why I think a guy like Cooks changes the equation. He's going to create separation, which the Cowboys are one of the worst receiving groups in football at that. A lot of Dak's interceptions were because he was forced to throw into tight windows all the time. his receivers could not create separation, in addition to often batting the ball in the air, as we saw him do just yesterday out here at camp. And so, I mean, people question whether Dak is, going to be able to. He vowed today again that he will lessen his interception total. He said it's a guarantee, and I believe he will because he's about the right things. It is DNA to protect the football, and now he's got receivers who are going to make the throws easier for him. And then when you talk about adding a guy like Sproles or Pollard is going to get a lot more opportunities. God, I said it again.
It's okay.
Deuce Vaughn. When you talk about him being an open field type player, and when you talk about Tony Pollard now not having to give away, opportunities to Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, I think they'll be a lot more explosive as a group in general, not knowing how healthy anybody stays.
Speaking of weapons, it's kind of interesting at tight end. Jake Ferguson, really good as a rookie. Peyton Hendershot really had some moments. I mean, he's kind of what you'd call somewhat of an explosive tight end, made some kind of...
You see him as a receiver.
Yeah, he kind of got some versatility there. But it's not... There's no headliners. It's not... I mean, and you had this point the other day that Dak really bonded, and Dalton Schultz was a great sense of security for him. I mean, starting to, obviously he was never going to be Witten, but it was starting to be reminiscent a little bit of Witten and Romo and some of the things we saw with a tight end being such a safety valve. And in this tight end room I think it's certainly there's some talent. McEwen's still here. Stretch Stevens, who I introduced you to today.
Catch today. Maybe the best offensive play of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting room. It's not a proven, it's not as heralded as some of the other groups in the NFL.
I think it's somebody there's got to really step up, and I think they expect it to be Ferguson because of how well he played. They liked the program he came from. They liked his duality as a player, that he can be an inline blocker and a receiver. And you're right. I mean, if you look at the numbers, other than like Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott was as productive throwing to a tight end, that being Schultz most of the time, as any quarterback in the league. And now Schultz, obviously, after playing on the franchise tag, is with the Houston Texans. So I think there's a big opportunity there and a big need there offensively for somebody to become a really viable threat in the passing game.
Well, fortunately, Ed, I happened to have a conversation with Jake Ferguson, the very guy you're talking about. I don't know if I mentioned that to you or not. And
where was I?
You were involved in a Pollard type thing. I think you were over somewhere fussing at me for not being available.
That was today.
That was during my interview with Dorrance Armstrong today, and before we talked to Deuce. But anyway, Jake Ferguson, and he talks about something interesting he's done with his body, and how he was able to kind of transform his body and to do something, Ed, you did a long time ago. I'm still waiting to do. He lost all his baby fat. Here is my interview with Cowboys starting tight end, Jake Ferguson. First practice out of the way and everything. Is it? I mean, being the guy in the room now, is it a weird feeling at all? I mean, without Dalton around, that kind of thing.
I mean, definitely different with change always. That's every year. But I mean, just getting out here first day, kind of getting those kinks out, knocking the rust off a little bit. Being out here with the guys, I mean, it's awesome. It kind of brings you back to that level of the game. You're still doing stuff in the off season that's football related, but once you finally get out here and start playing, it kind of brings you back, and it's just a great feeling getting out here with the guys with this new room, these new rookies.
What is the new room looking like, and what do you think of the new guys?
I think it's an exciting room. I think everybody in the room right now can play. They can bring something to this team, and I think L-Dub's doing a great job of just preparing everybody and getting everybody ready so that when their number does get called, it's the same product.
What was your off season like? What did you work on the most in terms of adding to your game?
A lot of it was my body sort of getting that baby fat off, and then just getting working comfortable with the new system. Not super new, some of the same old stuff, but also just getting down so when I do get out here, it's second nature, and it's just something that kind of comes easy.
Did the tight ends get invited to Lake Oconee at all, or is that okay? Did you make that trip?
I did. I was there. A couple of us made it. It was a great trip with Dak, the rest of the receivers. Just getting out there with the guys before we came out here. More of a bonding, but also getting a lot of work done and getting on the same page. What's
Dak like in those sessions? Is it pretty intense? Is he mixing a little fun? What's that like?
It's the perfect mixture. He's a leader. He's one of the best leaders I've ever been around in my entire life. And you see that through everything he does, whether it is when we're in between the lines getting work done, we're in the classroom learning, we're in workshops talking, or even when we're out kind of letting loose a little bit, just having fun. He's always that guy who brings the same energy every time, and no matter what we're doing, he's bringing everybody together.
All right, workout-wise, do you do anything creative, like outside of just hitting the weights and conditioning? Are you into any other things?
Nothing too crazy. I got somebody who's been making me walk a little bit more, little beach walks, stuff like that, but nothing too crazy.
The beach walks, what's that? I mean, just a stroll or?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
5 miles or something like that. Just walking, starting to walk a little bit more. Not in Dallas, it's too hot, but when we're in a good setting, it's always a little long walk. So. And
that kind of helps the mental?
Helps the mental for sure, but also, walking's good for you. It's better than just sitting around and not doing anything after a workout. So definitely something I've been picking up lately.
It makes me feel better about my walks to know an NFL tight end does some walks. Good name. What was your go-to chips, by the way? What was your favorite?
See, I don't discriminate on chips. I eat everything. A nice wavy lay. Oh my!
Those crinkled,
you do a dip or you just
my mom
straight
makes
chips?
a crazy first of all, the buffalo chicken dip is crazy.
That's a good one.
Yeah, my mom's a big dip lady. She makes everything, so that's kind of my Achilles heel.
The 7-layer dip. Yeah.
Yeah, being a Midwest guy, I love cheese. So, I totally had to give up everything.
That's a lot.
And then that baby fat just started falling off.
All right, Ed, if I had to give up chips, which is apparently what made a...
What kind of chips is he talking about? Is he talking about chips and salsa, chips and queso, or is he talking about bagged potato chips?
Well, he mentioned wavy lays,
okay.
So bagged potato chips, but every kind of chip. He's into every kind of chip. Now, when you say queso, buffalo, his mom's buffalo chicken dip. Now, my wife makes that. It's a Frank's Red Hot buffalo chicken dip, and it's got little shredded up somehow chicken in a dip. It's got some spice to it, and it's really, really addictive. But apparently he could eat a lot of it, and and then I thought that was interesting also what he talked about, because I'm always interested, because back in the day, like Greg Ellis, I remember talking to him, and one year either Taekwondo or something like that, he was doing some things to work on his pass rushing moves and all. And I said, what are you doing that's a little different? This off season, anything, that you're kind of doing to change things up? And he's like, well, I'm going on long walks. I said, oh, like mental, does this help with the mental? He's like, yeah, it helps mentally, but he's like, it's just when you're not doing anything, I'll just go walk for 5 miles, or whether it's on the beach or whatever.
In Texas.
Maybe. Wherever Jake was, I think was cooler. I don't know if I think he was getting outside of Texas perhaps. But I just said it makes me feel better about my walks to know an NFL player is out there doing walks. Because I used to think
young
of
NFL player.
Who's in his second year.
Yeah.
6'5", 230 pounds. Stretch Stevens, number 49, who they say is really, doing some good things, is 6'6". And that's how he got the name Stretch. And we have a Stretch. It's part of the Doomsday podcast.
We're always stretching.
Yeah, but we
stretch everything but the facts.
That's right. No, we
just twist. Hey, so I know we got another couple days out here, and I think one of the things we could look forward to, our listeners could look forward to, is I had a chance to sit down. Troy Aikman was out here yesterday. The only 3-time Super Bowl winning quarterback in franchise history, whose own Hall of Fame career began in a training camp about a half hour away from here, Cal Lutheran. And I had a chance to sit down with him for a couple segments we're doing for special programming on ESPN this weekend here from Cowboys Camp. I'm going to interview Jerry Jones live, I believe. That's the current expectation since he told me you would do it today on the sideline. But I think I talked to Troy, asked Troy like 5 questions about Dak and the Cowboys, McCarthy calling the plays, and some of the topics we've discussed here. So hopefully we can play all of that and discuss accordingly.
Yeah.
And then maybe have another great guest or two like we brought today.
Yeah, and that's, boy, Jerry, you really have secured some good things. And we'll certainly want to run that on Doomsday with Aikman before it goes on ESPN.
Yeah. I'll check with the lawyers.
Let's make
My
sure.
lawyers. Somehow we don't have the same lawyers.
Yeah, very, very.
I think you know what? I think I'm going to let it air on television first.
Okay.
Just, it's nice that they let us use it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be great, though, to have that on the Doomsday podcast, and we have a possible other interview set up, and then I'll be flying out of town Saturday in order to make it home for an enormous 100th birthday celebration for my grandmother. For some reason, I think I feel younger having a grandmother still with us. It just kind of keeps you in a...
I don't even have my parents with us anymore.
Well, that is sad because one of those is pretty recent, but it's been pretty neat.
But I think little Henry and Delilah share your affection for your grandparents.
Oh yeah, your grandkids, yeah. And hopefully someday they're celebrating your 100th.
Yes.
I could see it happening. I mean, you've taken...
I take such good care of myself.
You do. I mean, it's not like you have. I've been in reporters' rooms that I can think of one that I did a radio show with for a long time, and they're not stashing their rooms. They're not stocking their rooms with Gatorade like you are. You've got Fierce Intense. Galloway had Fierce Miller Lite.
It's not what Gil Brandt had in his room.
No, it's not like we're in Tex Schramm's room.
Tex Schramm's open bar. I could not believe that the first time I went. I mentioned Thousand Oaks with Troy Aikman, and that was 1989. It was my first year on the Cowboys beat, and man, were my eyes opened about how things are done in Texas and the NFL in Texas when I walked into Tex's room. And half of it was a hotel room that he slept in and lived in and worked in, and the other half was a veritable bar that all were welcome at after practice.
They just be milling around in there, huh? Having their drinks.
Come on in. It's cocktail hour.
Golly.
And then my first game at Texas Stadium, they still had draft beer for writers after the game in the press box. They
Well, they still have that.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah, I'm saying that hasn't changed.
I thought they got rid of that when Galloway went away.
No, I think they still have some draft. Now some reporters waited longer than others to start, right? We don't want to get too...
The creative ones go early.
That's right. All right, Ed, strong work. Our first podcast from Cowboys Training Camp. People have been asking about it. And thanks to Mark Frito Friedman, who's back at the mothership in far north Dallas. Ed, we'll look forward to all those things you just talked about. Very exciting times, and it's been fun. Been fun doing this. Been fun being out here, and we'll go see what we can get into. Last night you got into some stir fry, which I should have talked you off of that deal, but anyway, it's fine. It's fine. At that place, you really kind of want to go fried. You want to go with fried.
Stir fry.
Yeah, but like actual fried. On the stir fry was grilled shrimp.
I won't tell anybody what time you wanted to have dinner last night.
I like the old man that I hadn't eaten all day.
You should really go to the barbershop before you eat next.
Oh my gosh. Things have gotten out of control. All right, that is the Doomsday Podcast. For Ed Werder, I'm Matt Mosley. Good night from our studios here in Ventura, California.
Hey, Keurig coffee drinkers. Need a cold coffee with a bold flavor? Dunkin' Cold K-Cup pods were specially crafted for cold coffee. Brew over ice straight out of the Keurig coffee maker for smooth, delicious Dunkin' taste you know and love. Find your next Dunkin' Cold coffee in the roasted coffee aisle.
Walmart Plus members save on meeting up with friends. Save on having them over for dinner with free delivery with no hidden fees or markups. That's groceries plus napkins plus that vegetable chopper to make things a bit easier. Plus, members save on gas to go meet them in their neck of the woods. Plus, when you're ready for the ultimate sign of friendship, start a show together with your included Paramount Plus subscription. Walmart Plus members save on this plus so much more. Start a 30-day free trial at walmartplus.com. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. See Walmart Plus terms and conditions.